Hey guys, how are you? I'm going to talk to you about something I'm quite passionate about, and it's a journey that we're all on. It's a journey that affects and brings all my clients and people that I look to support and help grow. And it's probably my raison d'etre for both myself and for everybody I interact with. How do I get to a point where I can support and help people and give them all they need to know to understand how to build wealth that gives them the freedom and the financial independence to live where they like in a manner that they choose, and have the notion to cut and go on a holiday at any point they choose, and to still serve other people and to still have a normal existence, but for money no longer to be a restraint. And as part of that great study, it's very important to understand where we are. And I often talk about something that I say the system is broken, and it's designed to break from its very outset, and it reaches a point where it goes parabolic, and then its eventual failure is almost guaranteed, to the point where it then becomes imminent. So many of you are thinking, well, okay, that's a long old ramble. What do we got here? What I've got here is your current fiat-based financial system and the price of money. In other words, there's savers, there's spenders. You're either a producer or you're a net consumer. And at the moment, in terms of how we have balance here, there is nothing for a saver to be had in any bank in the Western world, and probably most of the entire globe. There is nothing for a saver to be doing involving banks that is meritworthy. Absolutely nothing. So if we take a look, the central bank controls the price of your money. The central bank controls your price of your money. In other words, they will institute a cost to the banks for placing money with them, or for borrowing money with them. If they pay a deposit rate, which they should, a positive deposit rate, when banks are not lending out, they should pay a minimum return. And when they up interest rates, that deposit rate should be higher on banks that deposit, and it should be higher on those that lend, so that banks are continually having to balance off the weight of their lending book versus depositing funds with the central bank, and the likelihood of being paid, etc., etc., aka the risk in the system. So what do we have currently in the globe? Well, first of all, we have the most extraordinary set of circumstances where a number of key major central banks, and I mean major, Japan, third or fourth, depending on where you put it, probably fourth now, biggest economic zone, negative central bank interest rate. Eurozone, the entire Eurozone, that's right, your EU bureaucrats that you see me ranting against, and Draghi, negative 0.4. Not slightly negative, 0.4. In other words, if a bank is not lending and pushing money out to keep the Ponzi scheme going, and is depositing funds with the Reserve Bank, it gets nibbled. It gets eaten. They put money with the central bank, and some of it gets taken away. They get paid for not they get charged for not lending and for saving. Minus 0.4. Sweden, the doyen of the Scandinavian nations, minus 0.5. Extremely high. Switzerland, because of the huge pressure of the failed EU zone and the multitude of people that wish to escape the EU and have Swiss bank accounts and Swiss money and a Swiss system which is more stable, to try and discourage the huge appreciation that took place repeatedly in the Swiss franc against the euro, will charge you 0.75%. This is the central bank to its bank issuers, by the way, and that is being broadly passed on in a variety of negative interest rates and costs to the end consumer. Will charge banks 0.75% for depositing with it. In other words, it costs you to save, and that cost will be passed on by the issuing banks where the Swiss have their bank accounts. Then we look at the second column here, which is the consumer price index, the cost of living. This is one of the most distorted and managed downward measures. The most deception takes place here. Toilet rolls are being measured that come out shorter and smaller when compared with basket of goods that existed 5 years ago. Items get irregular weight sizes, 187 grams, where previously they were compared with 250 grams of coffee, etc., etc. In short, the basket is shrunk, but is deemed like-for-like comparable when not. And in spite of all of this skullduggery, go look at John Williams' statistics in America. When utilizing the Reagan calculation of inflation in 1980 like for like, he has double digits for America, double digits inflation for America. Go look at John Williams' stats. This is not my assertion. However, despite the most distorted and downward managed CPI calculations, you will have a negative real interest rate for saving versus the cost of living, in spite of these numbers being downwardly managed in a deceptive manner that avoids all basis for like comparison as they decide something new like a mobile phone should replace some other purchase where there's a lot of technological deflation. In other words, they say because the device can do so much more, it should be actually charged at a higher rate, and the fact that it's same is actually deflationary and takes the rate down. All sorts of tricks are worked inside this, and in spite of that, when you deduct this amount from your central bank rates, when you deduct these inflation rates, which is money devaluation, the rate at which they expand money and devalue. So let's get this clear. Inflation is not prices going up. That is an effect of prices going up. Inflation is the inflating of the money supply, which leads to money valuation devaluation. Downward revaluation of your money. If I expand the amount of money in circulation, which the tertiary monetary system is, I am devaluing the money in your pocket. If everyone has £100 in their pockets and I increase the number of pounds by twice, the buying power of those pounds is halved, as all prices will have to go up, all things that are imported will have to go up, etc., etc. So understand that you are facing a positive inflation, and it's been taken off very low or even negative interest rates. Saving is being utterly discouraged in an environment where everyone is already over-leveraged. Every single one of these nations, from Eastern Europe, you've got Poland in there, you've got Australia and Canada as commodity-based first world nations, you've got the huge America, you've got Norway as part of the Scandies, again, also in negative rates, you've got Czech holding up the East with Poland, you've got the UK, you've got the Danes with the rest of the Scandies, and you've got Japan and the broader Eurozone, and Switzerland, the little oasis that gets too much of the fleeing euro currency. And this is where you go. And most of them, their last moves, the only ones to hike rates at the central bank level is UK, Czech, US, and Canada. Every other one of these nations' last move was a cut in rates, reducing that which gets paid on savings in an environment where the deflation of the money is higher than it's ever been. This is why I say to you, cryptos is not the bubble. The debt bubble in the fiat system is the bubble. The price of money has been managed so low, you're meant to just keep spending in it in an ever-quickening flurry to maintain some heat in the economy. And the problem with that is it is a hyperbolic end that will occur. And so much so, the price of money has been lowered. And do you think they've done it for you, the man in the street, to help you because times are tough? Not one iota of a sausage. They've done it to save their banking system, save inverted commas, because it has consequences on banks as well, adverse consequences from the huge indebted level that their balance sheets hold in both property and everything else. They hold your mortgage. If you lose your job and you can no longer pay your mortgage, they end up with an overvalued house on their books and a huge amount of fiat that will not be paid. How do they save the banks? They value the property up by devaluing the currency and making the price of money cheaper than ever so that people can continue to buy and invest in London property at ever more ridiculously low interest rates so that they can overextend themselves and that fiat can continue to be devalued in terms of the inflationary rate and to reflate all the things that caused all the problems. Only the problem is, second time around, there's not the same level of zip. What ends up happening is it takes 5, 6, 7, 8 times more debt to achieve the same amount of percentage growth in an economy than it did when it was less indebted. This is part and parcel of an ever worsening spiral. Your biggest bubble is the debt that has been created by your government. Countries that are spending twice what they get in tax revenues, and the rest they are rolling in new debt, while all existing debt is only having interest paid and is being rolled as well. Think of a dung beetle accumulating an ever larger pile of crap and rolling it on and on and on. Eventually, it's so big it can't be managed. And that is where we're at. And so when people say at coin market cap on the cryptos, you're a bubble. Yes, there's some tat. I think at some point there will be a clean out of certain coins. There's going to be some people that just by saying they're in cryptos and they've issued a coin and they get a whole whirl of money that's ready to chase in. There's no real commitment. There's no technical skills. There will be a pile of poo in there that will need to be cleared out. However, where there are legitimate, technically backed developers and systems and a new money system, it will replace. In much the same way as the .com, you will have your have-a-go Charlies that jumped on the bandwagon, but the new system is the new way. Does that mean I'm a big fan only for crypto? I think there's state involvement in the creation of Bitcoin and the ledger where everything can be tracked. I think there will be retrospective taxation. It's no ignoring the fact that the NSA had done a document in 96 that on a new money system that very closely echoes. I think the Satoshi narrative is quite potentially a fairy tale for adults. This altruistic person that did all this awesome perfect coding and then disappeared into the ether, it's all quite suspicious to me. But sometimes you have to be in the matrix to win, and the reallocation of assets or attention to the good quality crypto coins that can be aggressively traded in an expanding market. And when I say aggressively, that doesn't mean in and out every day, but that can be traded at the right moments without leverage. And in the longer run, the investing and holding of the better coins through good and bad, because there will be some washouts, are the place to be. You need 3 M's. You want your market. You need a stable mindset so that you're not suffering from fear of missing out, chasing and buying, and fear of loss, panic selling. And within that, you need a methodology. And that's what we hold. But here I give to you your Western Europe, your Eastern Europe, your Australia, Canadian, and US and Japanese global economy. Possibly the only big nation missing there is China, and their interest rate policies and their last moves in terms of the directions. And you tell me if there's big hikes coming ready to restore the value of your currency, or whether it's just been more of the same. By the way, 2008 in terms of these cuts were 8-9 years ago. 17 8 years ago, and they're still cutting rates. The last move, March the 16th, January the 16th. I thought this was just the Great Recession. It was a depression. It was the first major lightning strike of something that is far bigger, that hasn't been washed away, just reinflated, and you are either preparing, aka the reset sniper, or you're about to be taken over by a tsunami when it comes. And right here is the direction of the rates and your situation in terms of a crooked inflation rate that is downward managed, to give a slightly less extreme view of how saving is the new guaranteed loss of money at a compounded annual rate. And I'm going to do a couple of things on compound interest as a follow-up video, so stay close to that, because that has to be one of the biggest nuclear weapons of financial system, being on the wrong side of a compound interest equation. Watch out for that one. Speak to you all soon, and hope you enjoyed seeing the rates of your nation.